All right, I think we are live. Nobody joined yet, but that gives me a second here to just, if you are new to the live broadcast, I do this pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central Time. And it's just pretty much an Ask Me Anything session. So I let the chat kind of dictate how the video goes. If you have a question, leave it in the chat. I'll do my best to get it answered. And then it's whoever, ask the questions. That's kind of what it is. I don't really have a big topic planned. Just kind of get in here to interact with my viewers. Hello, Walter Camp. How are you? And anyway, get in here to interact with my viewers, answer questions, and just chat. We go for about an hour usually. So let me get the chat all set up here so I can answer it. And we'll get going. We got a couple people joining already. We got Walter in here. And Baby Coco, the amateur or something. Sean Monahan, Allison Beard, Jackmanson, 96. Aviario, Chris Colmar, and Christopher Stone. Hey there. Oh, look, we got a question already. Hang on, let me get the chat all kind of spread out here. Make sure I can read it this time. Okay. All right, so Christopher Stone says, hey, Chris, I have a rampant case of Bumblefoot with my quail. Any suggestions? Okay. Bumblefoot, if you guys don't know what Bumblefoot is, it's an infection that's caused usually by something getting in the foot pad of the quail. So like a piece of dirt, something like that gets lodged in there. So generally what you need to do is you need to cut it, sharp like a razor blade or something like that, and just a small cut, just nick it to wherever you can get whatever it is that's in there out. And then just use rubbing alcohol. Well, I wouldn't use rubbing alcohol, that's pretty harsh, but maybe some peroxide to clean it. You don't want to do that on a regular basis. Peroxide can be kind of harsh, can cause tissue damage, but just to clean it out real well. And then I wouldn't use anything more than just maybe soapy water after that to clean it out. As far as what's causing the Bumblefoot, could be any number of things, but it generally, like I said, it's something getting lodged in the foot pad. So look for, who knows? There's probably some kind of cut that it got, and then it got something in there. Sometimes hardware cloth can cause that if you've got a hardware cloth floor. I don't have that problem myself. I've never really had too many problems, any problems with Bumblefoot. But if you've got real rough wire, that can cause their feet to get scratched, and then an infection can set in that way. So, but again, you usually have to remove what's in the foot that's causing that. So hopefully that kind of answers that question, Christopher Stone, and hopefully that solves that issue. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Bumblefoot can be somewhat of a genetic, passed on genetically, kind of like sore hawks and rabbits. It's not so much that the Bumblefoot is a genetic issue; it's the sensitivity, what do you call it, weak foot pads, I guess, that would lead them to be more susceptible to Bumblefoot. So it may be a good idea to cull those birds that get it from your flock. And that way you don't have to worry about passing those genes on. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that. There's not really a lot of evidence that points one way or the other, but it is something to kind of consider. So anyway, hopefully that answers that question. All right, and let's see, a name I can't pronounce, looks like Arabic writing. I don't know what it says. It says, I have a 16 kilogram rabbit, and I don't know how much 16 kilograms is because I'm an American and we are backwards and use the imperial system, not the metric system. So I can't tell you how many pounds that is, but that sounds like a big rabbit. So nice. And let's see, Batman, I'm going to call you Batman, says hello to you. Allison Beard says, I have 5 litters of rabbits due this week. We'll have lots of babies. Had my first litter 6 weeks ago and was able to sell them all. So I'm looking forward to having some of these to eat. Nice, Allison. Rabbits don't sell that well around here. I mean, occasionally you can sell a few, but not enough to make it worth it for me. But if you can sell all those babies and hopefully you made enough to pay for your feed cost, that's the best. So I can do that with my quail. My quails sell pretty well, and I usually sell a handful of birds out of each hatch that I have, and that pretty much covers my feed costs for my quail and almost covers the feed pot cost for the rabbits too. So that's pretty nice, and still end up with enough left over for me to eat. So it works out pretty well with the quail. Can't do it with the rabbits though. All right, so Batman's saying, can I put quail on wire mesh or pine shavings? Okay. Yes, you can put them on wire mesh. I have wire mesh on all my cages. It's all hardware cloth. Works just fine for my birds, no problems whatsoever. Do give them like a sandbox or something else where they can get off the wire if they need to. Mine use it. They like the sandbox quite a bit. If there's no sand in it, it's just a solid floor. They use it somewhat, they don't use it somewhat. So it's really the sand that they really enjoy. As far as pine shavings should be fine. You don't want to use cedar, stay away from cedar, but pine shavings should be okay. They're going to get really filthy really quick. So you're going to have to be changing them out all the time. And that can cause problems too, because the quail walking, if you're not really doing a good job of keeping it clean, the quail walking on that, they'll end up with their droppings caking on their feet, and they can cause problems that way too. So that's just a couple of things to consider with that. But yeah, wire mesh works great for me. So, all right, let's go on here. Rachel McVeigh says, howdy, how are you? Let's see, Baby Coco the hamster. I messed up my name. Okay, I thought that might have been hamster, but it says hamster, but that's okay. I made worse typos myself. Walter Camp says, I liked your hutch build. It looked bigger than your other ones. It is a little bit bigger than my last hutch. I think my last one was, the bigger one that I have is 6 foot. The new one's like 8 foot. It's a little bit bigger. It's primarily going to be a grow out pen, so I wanted plenty of room in there. So far it's working great. If you guys watched that video, I have, I put the permanent sandbox in the one side, and so far that's working fantastic. Just a 2x4 laid on its sides enough. They haven't kicked all the sand out of there. It's still in there. The droppings aren't really too bad as far as building up in there. It's been going for 3 weeks or so, and I haven't had to clean it out yet. I probably will be cleaning it out, and it looks like it's going to work just fine to use like a small strainer of some kind to just scoop the droppings out. They don't really clump up like they do in like what would in kitty litter necessarily, but they still stay pretty solid and bigger than the grains of sand. So anyway, that's the plan. We'll see how that works. All right, where are we at here? All right, starting again fully says, hi again, question for you. This time have you ever heard about or experienced, I'm having a hard time reading, or experienced rabbits breeding through the wire mesh of their cages? Yes, that is a common thing that happens. Rabbits can breed through the wire of a cage. That's why it's always a good idea to put a cage divider between your males and your females if the cages are right up next to each other. I can't say I've ever had that happen because I've always had a cage divider. And I just get a piece of aluminum flashing from the hardware store. It's like $1.50 or something. And then just tie that to the cage. And that's it. It's just a piece of aluminum flashing that sits right between the cages so they don't have any access to each other that way. And it's solved all those issues for me. All right, the weird name that I can't pronounce, it looks like Arabic writing, says 16 kilograms, 32 pounds. 32-pound rabbit. My goodness, that's a big rabbit. Probably a Flemish giant would be my guess. All right, Allison Beard says, yes, all my sales paid for all the food I have bought so far this year from selling 7 babies for 15 each. Very nice, Allison. Glad to hear that. It's always great when you can cover your hobbies and your feed bill, I guess, with selling a few rabbits, and then you're going to have a bunch more and a bunch that you can throw in your freezer. Free food, nothing like it. All right, let me grab a drink here. All right, Batman says, do they lay in the sandbox if I do that? Yeah, I don't know if somebody else, yes, they love to lay in sand. Well, Walter Camp's answering that for you, but yes, they absolutely do love the sandbox. They have, and here's a great thing about a sandbox is that not only do they love to lay in it, but they almost lay all their eggs in the sandbox, or they lay almost all their eggs in the sandbox. So they come out incredibly clean. It's like they've been polished. It's crazy. So several reasons to have a sandbox in your quail hutch. It's and they'll get in there and they'll dust bathe in it and stuff. It's really fun to watch. All right, can I breed? Okay, this is Cy. Hard last name, don't know. It says, can I breed rabbit all year round, even winter? Cy, especially the winter time. That's the best time to breed your rabbits. They do way better in the winter time than they do in the summertime. In fact, I don't breed in the hottest parts of summer. I don't know where you live, but around here, it typically gets around 100 degrees, and breeding in the summertime during that hot of a weather is really not good for the rabbits. They really stress out in the heat of summer. Anything about over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, of course, they're going to really struggle with it. So yes, you can breed all year round. I would take the hottest parts of summer off, depending on where you live, how hot it gets there. There is a chance that your bucks will go sterile temporarily when the temperatures get over about 85 degrees. Again, it's not a guarantee, it's just a chance. There are plenty of people that do breed in the summertime. I don't. Wintertime is the best time to breed. All right, Odai Ali, I think I got it right. 32, where are you from? I don't know who are you answering. 32, you're answering the weight question, Odai. Yeah, where are you from? He's asking a weird Arabic name. Where are you from? I don't know if that's Arabic or not. It just looks like Arabic to me. I don't know any Arabic, so I can't tell you if that's what it is or not. But I cannot read it. It's letters that I don't understand. All right, Jackmanson says, where's a good place to get rabbits for breeding? Look on Craigslist if you can. That's usually a pretty good place. You may have to check back fairly regularly, but just look for somebody that's got purebred rabbits. I believe that purebreds make the best breeders. Californias, New Zealand's, silver foxes, something along that lines. But Craigslist is really good. You can also check American Rabbit Breeders Association, the ARA website. Sometimes they'll have breeders in your local area. Hopefully that helps. All right, your name is in Arabic. Okay, yeah, got it. I was right. It was Arabic writing. So, all right, Batman says, where should I buy the sand and what type do I use? Can use play sand. I think I saw Walter. Yep, says he goes to Home Depot and gets play sand. Play sand works just fine. That's what I get. No problem. I buy it from Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever. Usually you can get about a 50-pound bag for a couple bucks, like $2 or $3. It's pretty cheap. You're going to want a box that has fairly high sides on it, though. At least a couple of inches tall, because otherwise they're just going to kick all the sand out of there, and they kick it out pretty quick if you don't. The new hutch I built, I laid a 2x4 on its side. It's about 2 inches high. It's a pretty big sand box, but they haven't been able to kick all the sand out of there yet, so that's good. All right. All right. Baby Coco says, can I show us your rabbits? I think you mean, can you show us your rabbit? Can I show you my rabbits? Well, I can't do it on the live broadcast because we'd have to take the phone off here, go outside, and I'd probably lose connection, and it'd be a little tricky. But yeah, I do videos all the time, and the rabbits get shown in the videos all the time. Right now, I've just got the 2 breeders, and I've got 2 grow outs. After this weekend, I'll probably be down to just 2 breeders. I am probably going to get rid of the doe because she doesn't produce big enough litters for me. So I'm on the lookout for a couple of doe rabbits. If anybody lives close to Joplin, Missouri, and has a couple of good doe rabbits, let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you about picking a few up. But yeah, that's what I have right now. So, all right. Jackmanson says, paver sand is cheap and available. It's worked good for my birds. Yeah, nothing wrong with paver sand either. Douglas Welsher says, I think the Florida heat slowed my egg production. Could it be that they are dehydrated or just not like the heat? I do notice a little bit, Douglas, when the heat first comes on, they do tend to slow down laying just a little bit, but usually in about 2 weeks, they kind of pick back up. But that really happens any kind of extreme weather change. So like when it goes from summer to winter and it first gets really, really cold, they'll stop laying for just a short period of time and then start picking back up, or at least slow down anyway for a short period of time and then pick back up. So yeah, I do think that the weather does have a little bit of an effect on that. It's probably more a stress factor than anything. When they get stressed out, they tend to kind of stop laying for a couple of weeks and then pick back up. So anytime you move them, if there's some kind of predator jumps in there and freaks them out, any of those kinds of things is probably going to cause them to stop laying for a short while. So I think it's probably the stress factor of the weather change. That's my guess. Hello, Boris. Good to see ya. Let's see. Marcy's Eco Village says, hello, Chris. Thank you for all your help you gave me with the new rabbits this week. Hey, no problem. Glad I could help, and glad everything's working out well for you. Aviario says, hey, Chris, on the worm farm video, what size are the holes? I don't think you mentioned it. That's because it doesn't really matter. Just holes. I think I used maybe a 1/4 inch drill bit. I'm not real sure. But they are just, it doesn't really matter. There's no specific size hole you have to have. Just plenty of holes so there'll be plenty of air ventilation. If you're using smaller holes, make more of them. If you're using bigger holes, you don't need that many. And actually the worm farm's going, I don't know if you guys can see it. There it is right there. Sitting right there. It's going pretty good right now. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Ginger the Cat, hello to you. Christopher Soden says, have you ever considered a walk-in quail coop? Why or why not? Okay. I've considered it. The reasons I haven't built one is because it'd be incredibly expensive for a quail hutch. You're going to build one that's 6 feet tall, I guess, and however long. That's just a lot of wire to wrap around it. Of course, you wouldn't have to do it all wire. You could do it a couple of different ways, but still, that's a lot of expense that would go into something like that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just bigger than I need. I don't want to have to stoop down to the ground to pick up eggs either. I like being able to just reach in and get them. So that's just my personal preference. That's all. No reason you can't build a walk-in quail coop. There's plenty of people that have done it, and keep them on the ground. Works just fine. No reason you can't. Tyler Hoagie, good evening to you. Douglas Welsher says ash from your grill works well for quail. So soft, they love it. That's a good suggestion, Douglas. Wood ash is another good alternative for sand for a dust bath for your quail. They do like it. There's lots of things you could use, but sand, wood ash, any of those kinds of things are going to work fine. All right, Baby Coco says, are guinea pigs like rabbits? Well, kind of, but not really. Guinea pigs are like rabbits in a sense, in that they're small and they're furry and they're in the same kind of, what would it be? I can't remember now the scientific order, but they fall into the same group. Like, they're not rodents. Well, maybe they are rodents. Rabbits aren't rodents. Anyway, yes, they're kind of like rabbits in a way, but no, they're different. They require different care. Guinea pigs will do a pretty good job of taking care of themselves. There are people that raise guinea pigs for meat. It's not like the typical store-bought guinea pig. They're considerably bigger than that, but they have them in large colony settings, and they pretty much just care for themselves. So it'd be pretty nice. They don't have great big litters. They don't have lots of babies at a time. That's the downfall. They require different care than rabbits do. All right. Batman says, because my coop is slanted, is it fine as I put a sandbox with sand, maybe 2 every week? Okay, wait, let me read that again. Because my coop is slanted, is it fine if I put a box with sand, maybe 2 every week? Yeah, it should be fine. With your coop being slanted, the only thing you may have to worry about is if the sand all slides to one side of the box and the quail kick it all out. But yeah, you don't have to necessarily keep sand in there all the time. I prefer to try to keep sand in there all the time, give them something to get off the wire with, but it's not an absolute necessity. You could just add it a couple of times a week, give them a chance to get in there and dust bath a little bit and play around. But yeah, you don't have to do it every day all the time. All right. Jackmanson says, do female quails stay fertile for 2 weeks after breeding with a male, or is that a myth? 2 weeks is pushing it, but yeah, they stay fertile for, up to about 10 days usually after breeding with a male. I mean, it's not a guarantee that they're going to stay fertile for exactly 10 days, but yeah, they'll stay fertile for a while after being bred with a male. So yeah, you don't really have to. If you had a couple of hutches with just, a couple of females in there, you wouldn't have to have dedicated roosters. You could just switch the roosters out every week, and they're going to fertilize all the females. You're going to have fertile eggs. So that's one way you can do it. All right. Where are we at here? I'm listening to, okay. Marcy's Eco Village Life says, I didn't realize you were so close to where I live. Do you ever do rabbit harvesting classes? I haven't done any, but I've thought about that. I may put something together like that. I don't know where you're from exactly, Marcy. I didn't realize we were close either, but well, yeah, who knows? If I do, I'll post it on the Facebook group so you guys will know about it. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe there's some interest in that. All right, Jackmanson 96. Do female quail? Oh, I already answered that question. Wesley Curran. So my quail are too soft, and I put quail eggs. Oh, quail eggs are too soft, and I put quail eggs in a small bowl, but they play in it like a sandbox. What can I do to prevent that? Can I mix in their food? Okay, let me. Okay. I got what you're saying. You crushed up quail eggs. You put them in their a bowl for them to eat, like calcium, extra calcium. But they got in it and dust bathed in it instead, right? If you've seen my no waste feeders, it's basically like a Tupperware container. It's not Tupperware; it's a cheap brand. But anyway, it's just a short Tupperware, like family size Glad container, and you just cut holes in the side so they can stick their heads through and eat. You can use that for your calcium. Whatever it is, crushed up eggshells. Make sure you crush the eggshells up really fine so they don't associate that with the eggs necessarily and start eating their eggs. But yeah, you can do it that way, and then they'll eat it instead of playing it. Hopefully that helps with that. All right. So, okay, Odai. Hopefully I'm getting your name right. Odai. I hope I got it right. Hello, Chris. What meat, if you like the most, quail or rabbit? Oh boy, that's tough. Quail's got a lot more flavor to it. It's a dark meat, so it's got a lot more flavor to it. But rabbit, in a sense, is you get more bang for your buck. There's a lot more of it, and it's kind of more versatile in a way. You can just add, chicken broth or beef broth or something like that, and get it to kind of take on the flavor of whatever you're cooking it with, because it is such a mild flavor. So probably like the quail a little bit better. It's just more work to get more meat. That's the only thing. Samuel and Scarlet Monte, hello to you. Allison Beard says, for all my rabbits due this week, I didn't have enough nesting boxes made, so I found some deep, small drawers, and I'm going to use those. Good idea if anyone doesn't have boxes. That's a great idea. I would probably, if it was me, I might knock the bottom of it out and put a wire mesh bottom on it, cover it with some cardboard, because otherwise the wood's going to just soak up all any kind of urine, any of that kind of stuff, and it's going to be ruined because you can't really clean that out. That's just, and well, as far as ruined, who cares if it's ruined? But you don't want that, soaking that up and then using that for future litters. So you could use it for this litter, then knock the bottom of it out, if you needed to. But that's kind of what I might do with that. But yeah, great suggestion on that. All right, Marcy's Eco Village says that's what she uses, Allison. So great minds think alike, right? All right. Jay's Sermon says, I have a lot of squirrels in my yard, and other than trapping or killing them, how would I get them to keep, how would I keep them from my crops? Okay, my experience with squirrels is a pellet gun is the only thing I can do to keep them off my stuff once they start eating them. And I usually just have to clean them out every several years. I have to shoot about 4 or 5 of them, clean them out a little bit, because they start to get overcrowded. There's too many of them in the city. There's no predators. So I clean them out a little bit, and then I'm fine for a couple of years, and then I got to do it again after a while. You can put, they do make some sprays, like pepper sprays and those kinds of things. You have to reapply it every time it rains. And what my experience is that the squirrels, they still go to the tomatoes, but instead of taking the tomato, they take a bite and they don't like it. So they go to another tomato and take a bite, and they don't like that one. So they go to another tomato, and it doesn't really deter them too much. Squirrels are one of the most dedicated, hard-headed animals ever. They will find a way. I have not found anything that I can do to keep them out of things. They just find a way every single time. I haven't found anything besides that. So sorry, I don't have a great answer for that. All right, Tristan Piper says, hey Chris, I picked up some quail from a coworker a few weeks ago. They're now 6 weeks old. The males are starting to crow. Does that mean that the females are close to laying? More than likely it does, Tristan. You should start getting eggs probably anytime within the next week. Expect them to be a little bit slow to start with. They'll usually lay like an egg every other day maybe, or 1 or 2 a week, for a week or two, and then they'll be on. And it'll be just like every day you'll be getting all kinds of crazy eggs out of it. So 6 weeks old is just a little bit on the young side, but not unheard of. It's not that uncommon for quail to start laying at about 6 weeks old. I would still, the males do tend to start crowing a little bit before the females start laying. So you're probably looking at a week or 2 out before you really start getting any eggs. All right, Allison says, yeah, someone set a big dresser on the side of the road and they had perfect sized drawers, so I took them. Hey, great use for that. Dave Hogg says, hi from the UK. Had my biggest young rabbit yet, 8-pound weight, a New Zealand black. Tasted great. Awesome. Yeah, the 8-pound rabbit, that's a pretty good sized rabbit. You said young, so that's a pretty good sized young rabbit for sure. Christopher Stone says, so I have called all of my male quails except for 2. I kept the largest one, and the other is incredibly friendly. He literally comes up to me and lets me pet him. Ever had one like that that stood out? I've had some that were less wild than others, but I don't think I've ever had any that were that friendly that would just come right up to me every time. So, but awesome. That's a great way. I usually keep the biggest ones, but if I had one that was really incredibly friendly, I'd probably do that too. William Wilson says, what happened to your Celadon hatch, and did any of your quail ever lay Celadon eggs? Yeah, if you're asking me, yeah, I get Celadon eggs all the time. I'm saving up some eggs to put in the incubator this weekend, and I don't know, probably a quarter of them are Celadon eggs. I don't know which birds are the Celadon layers because they look just like any other bird. So it's hard to say. All right. Marcy's Eco Village from Kansas City, but I go to Joplin quite often. Nice. Yeah, Kansas City's not that far. Best barbecue in the world, Kansas City, Missouri. That's my opinion anyway. So I am jealous of your barbecue for sure. If you're ever in Kansas City, Missouri, Oklahoma Joe's. You got to try Oklahoma Joe's. Fantastic barbecue. Excuse me while I go have a drink. All right, Batman says, if they are fertile, do they still lay eggs every day? I'm kind of new to this and sorry for so many. No, don't apologize for the questions. That's what this video is for. That's what the live broadcast is for you guys come in, ask questions, me answer as many of them as I can, interact with each other, interact with me. That's what it's for. If they are fertile, they will still continue to lay eggs. They'll lay eggs every day, fertile or not fertile. It doesn't matter. All right. Oyster shells are great. Yes, oyster shells are great for the birds. It's a great way to add extra calcium to your birds if you need to. Probably a little bit better than eggshells, honestly, but eggshells are free. You can also use, garden lime. Make sure it's garden lime that you use, but you can use garden lime. That's a source of calcium for them as well. Oyster shells are probably the best, but they can get a little bit expensive depending on where you're getting them. All right. Christopher Stone says, keep a dog in the yard. Squirrels will stay away. Well, they don't stay away from my yard, Christopher Stone. Good suggestion, but no. Yeah, they run from the dog when he gets there, but they figure out pretty quick they can outrun the dog, and it doesn't, just having the dog doesn't work. All right. Marcy's Eco Village, I'm just going to call you Marcy, says, that's what I do with nuisance squirrels, shoot them, and now I want to start harvesting their pelts for practice. Yeah, you can eat squirrel too. Squirrel's fantastic eating. I don't know if I ever told you guys this story. I once cooked a squirrel on accident. You wonder how that happened. Came home from work and I had set a rabbit out. I had a cold. I wasn't feeling good at all. Really sick. And I grabbed one out of the freezer and threw it in the, it was a rabbit. Grabbed it out of the freezer, threw it in the fridge. And then I come home from work and I get it out to cook it. And I'm cutting it up and I'm thinking, man, this is a small rabbit. Why did I butcher this rabbit so small? And anyway, I cooked it. And as I'm eating it, I'm like, this tastes a little bit different. And then I realized it's not a rabbit, it's a squirrel. But it was the best squirrel I ever cooked. It was fantastic. Everybody says, well, how did you end up cooking a squirrel by accident? I'm like, well, I got squirrel in the freezer. I squirrel hunt. So I don't know about city squirrels, though. I don't know if I want to eat city squirrels or not. But who was that? Somebody, Christopher Stone, gave me a $9.99 super chat. Says, let's show Chris some love for all his knowledge. I enjoy your channel and wish all YouTube was this type of content. Well, thank you so much for the super chat funds, and thank you so much for the kind comments. I appreciate that. Let's see. Walter Camp says, yes, every day. I'm not, answering the question about eggs. Ken Flanders, hello to you. Isabel's here, hello. And I think everybody's doing well. I'm doing well anyway. Okay, Batman says, should I just keep the male and female together and I could still get the eggs? Yeah, you can just keep the male quail in with the female all the time. If you've only got one female and one male, she's gonna get bred like it's gonna be bad. She's gonna be bald like me. She's gonna have no feathers on the back of her head because he's gonna breed her like crazy. It's really best to go to about 4 to 5 females to 1 male. But you can do it. You can keep a male with the female all the time. I leave my males in with my females all the time. All right. Hello, Luke. How are you? You said hi about 5 times there. We saw it. Catherine Knudsen says, Jay, get a squirrelinator. It traps them live and in large quantities in one trap, and then you can drive them far away or drown them. Type the name of YouTube and watch the video of... Interesting. Here's the thing about trapping any animal and relocating it. I mean, unless you're relocating it like out in the middle of the woods or something like that, you're really just making it somebody else's problem. You're taking your problem and giving it to somebody else. Because most animals that are living in the city, if you live in town, and they are eating your vegetables or getting into your trash cans or whatever, they're accustomed to that lifestyle. So if you take them somewhere else, they're probably going to find their way back to city or something like that. So I would, again, there are places we have, public fishing accesses and things like that. You can go and release like a, possum or a raccoon or something like that, and they'd probably do fine. And even squirrels, it'd probably be okay. But don't just go take them out like, a mile away from your house and release them in somebody's backyard or anything like that. Not a good idea. There is no shortage of squirrels. I don't I don't like to kill anything without a purpose, without a reason for killing it. I don't just go around and kill things for no reason. I really prefer to eat whatever I kill. But at the same time, squirrels are overcrowded. That's why they're eating my vegetables. That's why they're getting into things. And if you don't control that population, if there's no predator to keep that in check, nature will keep it in check. And nature is very cruel. Nature keeps them in check by starvation and disease and all kinds of things like that. So it is a good idea to kind of thin them out a little bit. It's really not a bad thing. You're never going to kill all the squirrels. Trust me, not going to happen. All right. Odai says, I love your videos. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. Vine Hall says, how old do the hens stop laying approximately, and can you butcher them at this time to eat? Okay, yeah, you can butcher them at any time to eat. Usually they're going to lay for about 2 years, pretty close to it. Some hens are a little bit different. They may stop laying a little bit earlier. Some may go a little bit longer. But yes, you can definitely eat them at that point. The bigger the bird gets, the more meat's on it, the more fat's on it, which can be a problem with quail because they are very lean. So it's not a bad thing to let your quail grow out a lot longer before you butcher them. What I typically do is replace most, if not all, my breeders about once every year or so. And then usually whenever I do that, I just eat them all because they're bigger birds, more meat. So it works pretty well. All right. Kristen Ramarak, hopefully I got that right. Can I keep 3 female rabbits in one cage, and how do I make them have babies in the same day? And how many nest boxes should I put? Okay, unless it's a giant cage, I would not do that. I would keep them separate. As far as having babies on the same day, I don't know if you want to do that or not, but if you do, breed them all the same day. They're going to have babies real close, if not on the same day. But yeah, I would separate them out. You probably don't want 3 females in the same cage having litters of 10 rabbits each, and they can get a little bit territorial. Females especially can be territorial, like their own space. It really is probably best to go ahead and separate them out unless you've got a very big area and you're doing like a colony setting. All right. Walter Camp says, are you incubating them? I'm not sure who, are you talking to me, Walter? Am I incubating? I've got eggs set to incubate this weekend, so I don't know. I'm missing the question. I'm not sure. All right, says, what age does rabbit die and stop having babies? Rabbits are usually good for about 2 years as far as having babies, 2 to 3 years roughly. Usually, it depends on the rabbit. Depends on lots of things, but they can live up to 5, 6, 7 years. It's not uncommon at all. But usually their productive lifestyle is about 2 years. They may still have babies after that, but what happens is the litter size starts dropping. They don't do as good of a job of taking care of them. It's just usually about 2 years is about all you're going to get out of them. Christopher Stone says, what is celadon? Okay, celadon is a blue egg, a blue-green egg. It doesn't look like other quail eggs. I've got some I can go get here in a minute. And if you look back through my videos, there's a video, I think it's called Green Quail Eggs or something like that, where I showed off the celadon eggs. But it's a genetic trait that the birds carry. Again, the birds look like any other bird. They just lay these blue-green eggs. So, and every egg they lay will be a celadon egg. They don't lay different colored eggs. It's always that same exact color egg. That's the only difference, really. You have to have that gene in the rooster and the hen in order to pass that trait on to the babies. Actually, they would have recessive traits if you didn't have that in both the rooster and the hen. That doesn't mean they would carry that gene, and then there's a possibility if you bred them with another one that was recessive that they would throw some offspring that would have that gene as well. It's hard to explain genetics, but anyway, hopefully that kind of answers that question. All right, Wesley Curran says, can you mix the oyster shells in with the food or keep it separate, and how do you keep them from acting like it's a dust bath? Okay. It's probably best to keep your oyster shells separate. You can mix them in with the food, but it's best to keep it separate. Quail, like chickens, will kind of regulate their calcium intake. If they need more, they'll eat more. If they need less, they'll eat less. So in that case, it's better to keep it separate and let them just feed on it as they need it. To keep it from acting like a dust bath, again, I kind of described earlier, make one of those waste-free feeders with like a Glad family-size container, cut a couple of holes in it so they can stick their head through it, and leave the lid on it. That's all I do. All right. Levi Reese says, we might be neighbors. I live in the Farmington area. I'm not sure who you're talking to, and I don't know exactly where Farmington is, but who knows? All right, separate. Okay, Walter Camp's asking the oyster shell question. Yep, separate. Let them decide to eat it or not. Levi Reese says, do you have any Schofield silvers? Yeah, I do have some Schofield silvers. They're so far they're good birds, pretty good. They do show a little more aggression than my regular jumbo pharaohs do. I've got them in a separate hutch though, and they're pretty birds. I kind of like them. I keep a few around. I've kind of debated on just getting rid of them, just going all jumbo pharaohs, because the jumbo pharaohs really are my favorite. They're the, I mean, as far as a meat bird and an egg bird, they are the best. They just are the best, easiest. You can look right at them, tell which ones are males or females. They're good-sized birds. They lay the biggest eggs of any of the quail, of the Coturnix anyway, and just they're not nearly as aggressive as these birds are. These aren't terribly aggressive. They're not like when I had A&Ms, or I don't even know if they were A&Ms. They were probably English whites. But anyway, when I had pure white birds, they were incredibly aggressive with each other. But these are a little bit calmer than that, but nowhere near as calm as my jumbo pharaohs. All right, Green Raven says, if you only have a few quail, cuttle bone is easy to use for calcium. That's a good suggestion too. Yep, they will try to dust bath in it. Christopher Stone says, also for squirrels and birds, there's a motion detected sprinkler. Head that spray, yeah, the sprinkler head that sprays whatever something is moving around. I have seen those before, Christopher Stone. That's a fantastic idea. The one thing I think about is, you know, it's summertime, that hose laying across the ground, and the sun beating down on it all day. I don't know if you've ever turned a hose on and the water that comes out of it's like almost scalding hot. You got to let that water, just imagine that being sprayed on a squirrel. That might deter them. They may not come back again for a while. But yeah, I thought that was a great idea. My problem is just leaving a hose hooked up and running all the time. I can't ever get a hose that doesn't just leak a little bit eventually, and I don't want the water bill with that. But, you know, I think it's a great idea. I've seen them. It's cool. It's an awesome thing. If nothing else, it'd be incredibly entertaining. All right. Where are we at here? Dave Hogg says, having crazy weather here in New England. It's 1:30 a.m. and 64 degrees. And northeast England, not New England. I was like, it's not 1:30 in the morning in New England. No, northeast England. 64 degrees Fahrenheit, normally in the 50s this time of year at night. Best wishes. Well, 1:30 in the morning, and you decided to come in and join us in a live broadcast. I feel very lucky to have you here. Thank you so much. 64 degrees. Yeah, we're lucky if we get down to 64. It's actually, I think tonight is supposed to get down in the high 60s, but it's been in the mid 70s to high 80s. And, you know, during the day, it's been getting up to 100. We've had a cold front come through, though. The last 2 days, I think it only got up to like 78, 79 degrees. It was pretty nice. All right. Batman says, in winter, they slow down laying. And what should I do with quails in winter? Kill them or keep them in or what? Well, it's up to you. Really, Batman, the reason they stop laying in the wintertime is because of lack of light. If you add light, 14 hours a day of light, they will continue to lay in the wintertime as well. If you want that, go ahead and do it. I usually keep mine laying all the way up until the coldest months. So usually right around November, which are also the shortest months. November and December and January, and then I kick them back up. I give them about 3 months off and then kick them back up. Yeah, you can eat them all if you want to, you know, or you can just keep them. It's not a big deal to me. I just keep them all winter long. I do reduce my numbers though. I go down to just the bare breeding flock, and that's it. And then kick them back up in the spring. All right. Edward Leffler says, so received 30 eggs on eBay. Okay, got 30 eggs on eBay, had the 2-hour power shortage, and 10 hatched, 8 lived. 7 not fertile, rest died during power outage. I'm thinking about one more batch, or let them lay and use those. Oh, yeah, I would do another batch of quail. Too bad about your power outage. I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, if you've got well, it's not incredibly cheap, but it's kind of cheap way to avoid those kinds of issues. Just get like a deep cycle marine battery and an inverter. Make sure you get one that's like 150 watt or, you know, a bigger inverter. And you can hook that up to your battery, and you can plug your incubator into that, and it'll run your incubator for hours. So if you need one, it's a good alternative to a generator. It won't run like your refrigerator or those kinds of things, but it'll run like your incubator, lights, a radio, you know, those kinds of things pretty easily. All right, Eileen Gamer says, do quail need game bird feed? Well, they need some kind of feed. I prefer game bird starter. That's my favorite kind of feed. It's a higher protein. It's got, as long as it's got calcium of about 1.5, 2.5%, somewhere right around in there. It's a great feed. You can use turkey starter. It's about the same thing. You can feed them other things though, but just they need a higher protein. They need 24% or higher protein, really. So it's going to be hard to find that in many other feeds. You can supplement other things to bring the protein up, like mealworms and crickets and those kinds of things. But I just prefer to buy a game bird starter that's already there. It's just easier. All right. Nathan Duthie says, hi, finally getting on a live after so long. My meat chickens at the fair got 6th place. Well, that sounds pretty good. Congratulations on that. Thanks for making it in for the live broadcast. Appreciate it. Yep, Walter Camp's saying the same thing. That's the best feed for them, high protein and calcium. Okay, Wesley Curran says, so if I was to sell some baby quail or eggs or adult quails, is there a certain price range or does it depend on the area I live in? Yeah, it depends on the area you live in. Around here, I can usually sell adults for about $5 to $4 to $5 a bird for anything over about 6 weeks old. Under that, they usually go for about $1 for however old they are. So like a week old, $1, 2 weeks old, $2, 3 weeks old, $3, 4 weeks old, $4, and then anything above that's $4 to $5 usually. But it depends on your market. If you've got somebody in your area that's selling birds for $2 a bird for, full-grown adult birds, you're gonna have a hard time selling them for $5, of course. But chances are they're not going to be selling them for that price for very long. So anyway, it's just whatever your market can bear. Look on Craigslist, check and see what other people are selling them for. That's probably about what you can do. That's just my suggestion on it. Unless you've got something special like, I've got Jumbo Pharaohs, JMF Meat Maker Jumbo Pharaohs. Those are my line. That's the bloodlines I've got. And those are great birds. So they do beat out, like there is somebody that sells live birds, full-grown birds for $3 I think for a full-grown bird, but they're just standard Coternics. They're not Jumbo Pharaohs. So I do sell them for $5, and I usually get some buyers for that because they're good bloodlines, and it's a good deal for everybody. I'm not ripping anybody off. All right, where are we at? What brand of feed do you? Okay, how often do quail need game bird feed? I think we already answered that. Yep, I already did. You just asked again to make sure. Okay, how often do quail lay eggs? Coternics will lay pretty much an egg a day. As long as they have 14 hours a day of light a day, they'll pretty much lay an egg a day. They're very prolific egg layers. So they work fantastic for me. What brand of feed do you use? Levi, I use a feed from a local feed mill. They make their own, so it's not something that's sold nationally that you can get just everywhere. But really, the brand's not that important. They're all going to be pretty much the same. Check with if you've got a feed store in your area, check with them. See if they can get it for you. It's probably going to be cheaper than going to like a Tractor Supply or another big farm supply store and buying what they sell there. That's my suggestion. All right. Would 100%, this is Gear saying, would 100% wood ash dust bath cause respiratory problems with quail? That's a good concern. I don't know that it would. There's a lot of dust in it. So yeah, it's a good concern. Maybe, that may be something, I don't know. Honestly, I've never tried it 100% wood ash dust baths all the time. So I'm not 100% sure on that. Good question. Bebopalula, there we go, that was a hard name. Not going to get much meat if a quail, not going to get much meat off of a quail. Yeah, they're not huge birds. I usually eat 2 of them for dinner whenever I eat, but they are good. Walter Camp says, I use Mana Pro, but I add calcium. There's a good suggestion for a brand of feed. All right, Bebopalula says, excuse my ignorance, but why quail over chicken? Well, there's a couple of reasons why you might want to do quail over chicken. One is you can keep them in cages. They're way easier to care for than chicken, in my opinion anyway. Mostly because you can keep them in cages. I keep mine in hutches. They lay an egg a day. They're very prolific. I can keep them in town. I can have roosters with them in town, so I can get fertile eggs, incubate them out. They get to butcher size within about 8 weeks. So they're they're great for that. I can't do that with chickens in town because I can't have roosters. So I can't get fertile eggs. If I was going to get fertile eggs and hatch out chickens, it takes a little bit more than 8 weeks to get them really up to size if I was wanting meat birds out of it. So there's several reasons why I would do quail over chicken. if you can do both, why not do both? Chickens are great too. All right. All right, Batman says, if you had to buy feed, where do you buy it, online and in store, please? I would look for a local area. Like I said, look for a feed store in your area. Look for a farm supply store around here. We have Tractor Supply and Outwoods. They both sell game bird starter, but I buy it from a local feed store. We have a couple of feed stores in the area, and one of them I can get it through. The other one actually mills their own, and I can get it cheaper there. So that's where I buy. Buying online, you're going to pay a lot because the shipping is going to be expensive. It's going to be a heavy package, so you're going to pay a lot. It's better to look for someplace local. If you had to, you could go to Amazon. That's probably going to be as good a place as any. But you might check if your local feed stores don't carry it. Just ask them and see if they can order it in, because a lot of times they can. They just don't carry it because there's no demand. All right. Where are we at here? Hello to you, Chad. Samuel Beasley says, Sam and Vicky from Powell, Missouri. One of my favorite places in the world, Powell, Missouri. Just a beautiful area there. And Batman says, how often do you do lives a week? I do one live broadcast a week, usually every Thursday. This would probably be a good time to say next week I probably will not do a live broadcast. If I do, it will probably be on Friday, not Thursday. But I don't know that I'll be able to get one in. I've got another work trip to the Dominican Republic. I'll be there all week, and I'll be busy with work all week. Probably won't have time to do a live broadcast. If I do, it'll be probably Friday evening, but we'll see. All right. Walter says, I have a farm supply store I go to. Yep. Batman says, are there dangerous foods we eat, not counting like chips like that? Sorry, I got distracted by other comments. Okay, are there dangerous foods we eat, not counting like chips like that? Are you talking about like dangerous foods that you don't want to feed to your quail or your rabbits, or are you talking about dangerous foods for us? Yeah, all kinds of, I mean, this is probably terrible for me, but I drink it all the time anyway. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer what, foods are dangerous for us as people. But as far as for your quail and stuff, pretty much stick with vegetables. You can feed them some, I guess they could eat some meat, but no, not a good idea. It'd be better to feed them bugs and things like that than it would be to feed them actually meat. Most vegetables are going to be okay, but there are some you want to stay away from. Iceberg lettuce is terrible. Don't feed it to any of your animals. Not good for them. You want to stay away from onions. That's a big question. I can't answer it all right here, but I'd have to look back at my notes to get the entire list. I did a video on what vegetables quail can eat, though. You can go back and watch that video, and I did a pretty decent job, I think, of covering that. All right, Douglas Welcher says, here in Florida, $4 for a roosters and $6 for a hen. Wow, that's a pretty good price for a hen, $6. Oh, excuse me. Around here, it's pretty much $4 for every bird. Some people try to sell the roosters for less and the hens for more, but I've never seen that be very successful. I just sell them all for the same price. Most of the time what I do is I sell, because you're only throwing in, one rooster for every 4 to 5 hens. So if I sell somebody, 10 birds, I usually just throw a rooster or 2 in for free. It doesn't bother me. It's no big deal. All right, Eileen Gamer says, I like Craigslist when buying quail hatcheries. Want you to buy 50, 100, or even more. They breed so quick, it's too much. Well, it is in a sense, Eileen Gamer, but here's something you got to consider about the quail hatcheries. One thing is they have to sell in volume. It's not worth it for them to sell cheaper than that. If they were to sell you like 15 eggs, they'd be charging so much to cover their shipping costs for them to make a profit that it'd just be a ripoff for everybody. So they have to sell bigger volumes in order to do that. Secondly, you can usually get a fantastic bloodline through a hatchery, like JMF meat makers, JMF jumbo pharaohs, some of those kinds of things. Whereas when you're buying off Craigslist, a lot of times you're just ending up with somebody's mixed breed, standard size birds. You never know. But you may be able to find those bigger birds locally too, so it's a great suggestion. Either way, there's nothing wrong with doing it either way. All right. Levi says, Chris, have you tried taking a few quail to a livestock auction? I've never taken quail to a livestock auction. I've been to a few livestock auctions, but I've never sold anything. I've always been a buyer. But yeah, I'm sure quail would sell at a livestock auction. Nathan says, do you sell and ship quail eggs? I don't. I'm not really set up to do shipping. I'm not NPIP certified, so I just sell some live birds locally to cover my feed cost. I'm not in the business of trying to make a profit off of my rabbits or my quail. That's just, I don't want to put that much work into them. It's more to feed me, to feed my family. But if you're looking to buy quail eggs, I always suggest Kansas City Quail Farms. They've got some great bloodlines. Good guy. He'll take care of you. And just tell him I sent you. All right. Luke says, can you house different quail breeds with each other? If you mean different quail breeds, you mean like jumbo pharaohs, jumbo meat makers, Texas A&Ms, and Schofield silvers, tuxedos. Yeah, you can house all those together. They're all Coturnix quail. It's just different color strains, basically. That's the only difference. And some of them are bigger than others, but that's it. They're all Coturnix. They'll all interbreed, no problems. If you're talking about different species of quail, like bob whites and Coturnix, well, you can house them together probably, but they're not going to interbreed, not successfully anyway, and produce offspring. They're different species. All right. Isom, I'm not going to even try all the name. Isom or Isom, I'm not sure if I got your name right. How long will quail lay eggs? Okay, we answered that question already, actually, but usually for about 2 years you can expect them to lay eggs. I try to replace mine about every year, year and a half, roughly. And that just keeps them laying all the time. They'll start to slow down a little bit towards the end of their cycle, but you can expect about 2 years out of them. All right. Walter Camp says, not a big box store name, just a local farm store. Where do you live, Batman? Find out. I don't think he's answered yet. All right. Tom Wolf, hey there. Gear says, how long do you line breed your JMF birds? Do you order another batch of eggs every so often? Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. I mean, I've never had any problems with inbreeding or anything becoming a problem. I do tend to add some new blood in about every couple of years, just a couple of new roosters or whatever, if I can find them. Ordering some new eggs, I probably will do that. I haven't had the jumbo pharaohs for that long that I've had to order new eggs yet. And like I said, a couple of years, I've never had a problem with them, the inbreeding becoming a problem. So you can line breed probably indefinitely. Just look for problems. If you start noticing things, call them out, bring in some new blood if you need to. Douglas Welsher says, I use 100% wood ash, works really well, but my quail are on natural Florida ground, which is a rather sandy area, so it does mix in within a couple days. Okay, that's a good point. You're not putting just wood ash in a box. You're putting it on the ground, and they're getting it mixed in with the ground, so that's a good point. You could just get dirt, just dirt out of your yard for that matter. You might run it through the oven, like at 400 degrees for 15 minutes or whatever, kill any kind of, bacteria or anything that's in there. I don't know, it's a big concern, but, if you're worried about it, and then just mix that in with your wood ash and, way more wood ash than you would dirt, but that makes it a little bit less dusty. So, all right. Levi says, what do you do with your quail poop from the stacking cages? Well, I'm not using the stacking cages anymore. I've got them all, it just falls to the ground, but it's the same thing. You can compost it. Add a bunch of carbon to it, so probably like 5 times carbon to 1 time, quail manure. Quail manure is very high in nitrogen, so carbon would be like straw or dead leaves or even grass clippings, although they're kind of more nitrogen, but they dry out and become carbonish. So anyway, add as much of that stuff as you can, and then sprinkle the the quail manure over the top of it, and let it compost. It'll compost pretty quickly. If you turn it, you can get it compost really fast, or just let it sit and be lazy. And 6 months or so, it'll compost down, and you'll have compost you can use on your garden. If you don't garden, you don't have anywhere to compost it for or whatever, just bag it up and throw it in the trash can. Douglas Welsher says, my quail are spoiled. They're always digging in the ground, rolling around and such. Pretty fun to watch. I bet it is. I've kind of toyed with the idea of doing a ground cage and giving them access to the ground, but it's just there's a lot of things I'd have to work on before I can get that done. So, all right. Luke Stalwer says, how do we buy quail from you? Well, if you're in the local area and I've got some for sale, I'd be happy to sell them to you. But I'm not that big of an operation where I don't have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of quail where I just have them available for sale all the time. I've got some eggs going into the incubator this weekend. So in about, 14 days, probably in about 4 weeks, I should have some babies that would be available for sale. I'll probably list them when they start getting about 4 to 5 weeks old. I'll probably list them on Craigslist. But yeah, if you're in the area, Joplin, Missouri area, and you want to buy quail and I have some available, I will sell them to you. That's pretty much it. I'm not really in the business of selling quail. I just sell them occasionally, help cover my feed cost. All right. Marvin says, my doe just died because of cold. What can I do to prevent this from happening again? It died because of cold. You mean like the cold air, like the cold environment it died, or it got a cold, like a sickness, and died because of that? It's incredibly rare for a rabbit to die from cold air, unless there's something else wrong with that rabbit. It'd have to be very, very cold. And again, something else almost has to be wrong with that rabbit. They do a fantastic job of insulating themselves and keeping themselves warm enough in the wintertime that I would be surprised if that was the case. So there was probably something else that was wrong with the rabbit, maybe something else it died from even. I don't know for sure. Sorry to hear about your loss there. All right, yep, you're welcome. John 3:16, I live in a town and my rooster's crowing is very annoying. Is there a good way to keep them from crowing? Aside from eating them, I don't know of one. I've never had problems. I mean, you can reduce your rooster numbers. You don't need that many roosters. And they will stop crowing as much, over an extended period of time. If it's annoying you, that's one thing. I've asked all my neighbors. None of my neighbors are annoyed by it at all. In fact, I've got some neighbors that didn't even realize I had quail. They just thought it was some kind of songbird back there making songs. They didn't know what it was. So, there's no way to make them stop crowing completely. If you want them to be breeding your females and want them to get fertile eggs. If you reduce the light below 14 hours a day, they'll go off of their breeding cycle, and they don't crow really when they're off their breeding cycle. But you're not gonna. There's no way to stop them. And they really crow a lot when they first hit their maturity. About 8 weeks old, boy, they're on it. I mean, they're just crowing all the time, and then they will calm down a little bit as they get a little bit older. All right. Kyle Clark says we have a livestock auction close by, depending on the time of year. They either so high or you about give them away. Oh, yeah. It depends on the time of year. Probably depends on who's there too, whether they're in demand or not. Hey, Armed Americans here. They have a crow collar you can put around their neck. I don't know about that. Those things can seem kind of cruel to me, but who knows? Maybe they work. All right, Gear's going to a welding class. Well, hey, have a good time in class. Thanks for stopping by and joining us. We're getting real close to wrapping this up. I got just a couple of minutes left here. Let me skim through the comments, see what we got here. Mike Priest says, all the New Zealand kits are doing fine. Many fine reds and broken reds. Hope all is good with you and your family. God bless you. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate that. Everything is going well with my family for sure. And thank you for the blessings. All right. What else we got here? Chicky Poppin' Poultry is getting rid of all our birds. We had to start a successful seafood restaurant and will not have time to keep them. You can look them up. All of our breeds at Chicky Poppins. Yeah, you can. Where are you located? I can't remember where you're located. Chicky Poppins, but I know you do more than just quail. You have a lot of unique breeds of chickens too, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Isabel's got to go pay attention to a duck. Well, have fun with your duck, Isabel. Thanks for joining. We will see you again. Probably won't be on next week. Maybe we'll see. If not, we'll see you the week after. What is that thing? Okay, but if you want, what do we? Okay. Got to wrap this up, guys. Walter Camp says, thanks again for everything, Chris. Have a great night. All, thank you very much. You have a great night as well. Is there a minimum size coop needed for rabbits and quail? Yeah, there are minimum sizes for that. Depends on how many quail you're going to have. Rabbits, the minimum I like to go with is a 30 by 36. So 30 inches by 36 inches and at least 24 inches tall. They need to be able to stand up, completely up inside the cage. Quail, 18 inches tall is a cage. And then 1 square foot per bird. So however many birds you're going to put into it, that's the minimum size of the hutch that you need. Hopefully that answers that. Don't mean to rush, guys, but I've been on here right at an hour. Thank you so much for the $1 super chat, Rebecca. I appreciate that. Always willing to share with me, and I feel very blessed to have you guys as part of my live broadcasts every week. Thank you so much. God bless each and every one of you. Got to sign off here. Go spend some time with the family. One more day of work, and then we're on to the weekend. So everybody have a great weekend. Maybe we'll see you next week. Probably not. I'll be in the Dominican Republic. We'll see you the week after. God bless you all. Good night.